You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look at better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheap again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the second part of What If Naruto Enters Monster Musume, Everyday Life with Monster Girls. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of DJ Unk 101 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Naruto frowned as he looked at the barn. He had seen movement but with the only source of light currently hidden behind some clouds, he wasn't able to see what was in there. As he got closer he could hear a strange noise, several light thuds as if something with more than 4 legs was running and jumping around. He might even say something was scurrying around. What is it? Kaguya asked directly in Naruto's ear, nearly giving him a heart attack. Don't know. Naruto swallowed. But be quiet please. I want to catch them unawares. Kaguya scowled at him for basically telling her to shut up, but otherwise followed his request. The two creeped up to the barn's entrance before noting the scurrying had stopped. Naruto squinted into the darkness. Anything? Exclamation point. Naruto furiously mimed being quiet before creeping inside the hut and activating his golden aura, to reveal an empty barn. There's nothing here, Kaguya remarked. Well maybe somebody scared it off by talking, Naruto replied irritably as he looked up at the ceiling for any exits it might have used, although the roof was more hole than ceiling which provided plenty of possible escape routes. Well maybe it was someone lighting up like a flare that scared them off. Kaguya retorted angrily. Using my chakra as some sort of cheap light source. Well maybe, it is right behind you. Naruto finished quietly as he spun around to yell at Kaguya. Is it? Yes. As if on the world's slowest turntable, Kaguya turned around. Illuminated by Naruto's golden glow, a woman stood behind her. She had shoulder-length blonde hair and a rather impressive bust. She was wearing a plain white shirt that covered her arms and a black dress that started just below her waist that covered, far more legs than what Kaguya was expecting to see. Below her waist she was a spider with long, thin, brown limbs with darker brown stripes. Her hands were of a similar color and the fingers looked vaguely claw-like. 6 red glittering eyes seemed to focus on her. The three stood in silence for some time, Naruto's shock rapidly fading whilst Kaguya remained still, hoping the strange woman was not aggressive. So, Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Are you, Can you speak? Yes. The new arrival bowed her head slightly. Despite her appearance, her voice sounded just like a normal woman and Naruto felt himself calm down at the ability to converse with her. Why didn't you? Naruto asked. Species Cultural Exchange Bill, Article 31A, Subsection 4. All diplomatic representatives are to follow the orders of their handlers and any relevant government officials unless said order contradicts a principal law. She quoted. I was requested by Agent Smith to stay put until my representative was sent to meet me at this location. Agent. Wait, sunglasses sent you here. Kaguya found her voice. Sunglasses? The spider girl frowned. Article 21D, Subsection 1. All human agents and handlers should be treated with the respect that any diplomatic representative deserves. I care little for your treaties, Kaguya scowled. I am of noble BLD. Don't mind her, she's just grumpy because she didn't get much sleep. Naruto laughed weakly and stepped between the two girls. So. Did Ms. Smith tell you who your representative is? Indeed, the spider produced some paperwork and handed it to Naruto, who decided it best not to question where she produced it from. Let me see here. Naruto scowled. It seems to be written in a language I understand, at least in parts. I have no idea what I am looking at. Wait. That's my name. Oh, this is me. Naruto repeated aloud. I am Naruto Uzumaki. Pleased to meet you. I thank you for giving me this chance. The Spider Girl shook his hand. Her hands felt weird to Naruto, but not in a bad way, just in a different way. Chance. Naruto blinked. Indeed. I was initially rejected for the species exchange program. Agent Smith worked very strong to change that. Why were you rejected initially? If it's not a personal question. Article 21E, subsection 3, a diplomatic representative is required to answer all questions asked by a handler or agent unless answering could infringe on any of the principal laws as detailed in Article 1. If you wish for me to answer, I am obligated to do so. If you don't want to, you don't have to, Naruto chuckled. It is nothing personal, the Spider-Woman shook her head. It was decided that my hunting instincts would make living in a city environment difficult. Hunting instincts? Kaguya frowned. Indeed, I am a long-leg type arachne and we are carnivorous with a very strong innate hunting instinct. It is believed that in a city environment my instincts may lead to me hunting humans. Which would be in violation of Article 1A Principal Law 3, a diplomatic representative should pose no danger to the public before being allowed on the program. You sure know a lot of laws, Naruto laughed weakly. I need to. Oh, where are my manners? Naruto blinked. I just realized I never asked your name. The Spider-Woman took a deep sigh. Chi-Chi. My name is Chi-Chi. What a vulgar name, Kaguya remarked bluntly. Naruto blinked clueless. Isn't that a way of saying dad or something? It can also mean melons, Chi-Chi admitted. I assure you I have heard every joke imaginable about it. Oh, fair enough, Naruto shrugged. Nice to meet you, Chi-Chi. I'm Naruto. Such a vulgar woman, speaking freely of such topics, Kaguya snorted. Be grateful that I, Kaguya Otsutsuki, Empress of the Moon and the Rabbit Goddess, tolerate your presence. Pardon? Chi-Chi blinked. You'll get used to her. Naruto laughed weakly. So. He looked at Kaguya then back to Chi-Chi. What, exactly do I have to do? Pardon? What is my job as your handler? Chi-Chi blinked. Do you not know? Not really, Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. But that is in contrast with Article 1A subsection 2, all handlers must be declared competent before being assigned to the program. Chi-Chi frowned. Hey, I'm plenty competent. Naruto countered. I was given this job for a reason. Even so, Chi-Chi seemed unimpressed. I have been waiting here for several hours. I believe that you may not be qualified for this role. I apologize if this offends you, which would be in violation of Article. Yeah, I get it, Naruto cut her off. You like your rules. Tell you what. Why don't you come inside and sleep it over? I'll figure out a way to get a hold of Ms. Smith in the morning. Very well. Chi-Chi bowed her head. As you are currently my handler, it is my obligation to comply with any requests you make, within reason. Where will she sleep? Kaguya frowned. Oh, I had a few clones hanging back at the house who were creating a few spare bedrooms anyway. Naruto grinned at her. What are you smirking at? Nothing, Naruto chuckled. One of my clones just dispelled. Apparently you were talking to a bunny, but when he stepped into the room the floorboard creaked and you were out of there. It was almost as if you knew the Hiration technique. I know not of what you speak, Kaguya narrowed her eyes. But I'm sure this technique is as unimpressive as anything else you have done, such as those crude chakra hands you make. Crude? Naruto crossed his arms as they walked back to the house. Chi-Chi following up the rear. They have opposable thumbs and everything. My chakra limb was completely indistinguishable from a real limb. Kagaya smirked patronizingly. But I'm sure for one of your breeding, that was a good attempt. She patted him on the head. Naruto glared at her back. It appears that your other charge doesn't respect you, Chi-Chi noted. About half a day ago we were trying to kill each other. Naruto shrugged. I don't know where to start with how many rules that breaks. Oh, don't worry. I'm 25% sure she's forgiven me. I mean, I only cost her arm, her powers, and possibly stranded her in a foreign world. Naruto smiled at Chi-Chi, who wasn't entirely what to say back. Why do you put up with her? Chi-Chi asked. I mean, Article 21A says. Let me tell you about some rules I live by. Naruto stopped to look at her. I call them my nindo or my ninja way. I will never give up, so long as I can breathe I can fight, so long as one person needs me. I will never give up on them. Even if they have gone a little of the rails, he mumbled the last bit, thinking of Sasuke. So even though she doesn't respect you, you won't give up on her. Oh Kagaya. Naruto laughed weakly. Well. I guess I kind of feel somewhat responsible for her current predicament. Plus, I don't think she is genuinely a bad person. She's just had a bad day. Chi-Chi wasn't so sure but chose not to comment. In the morning she would see Agent Smith and would voice her concerns. She was sure that Agent Smith would be understanding. The next morning. Rejected, Ms. Smith smiled as she nursed a freshly brewed coffee. She had shown up early with some supplies for the farmhouse as well as some experts to repair the bits that Naruto didn't know how to. He had saved her an impressive amount of LBR, which was always a good thing as she was expecting the house to be in a pretty bad state when she arrived. She was currently enjoying a full breakfast as prepared by Naruto whilst sipping a coffee, also freshly brewed by Naruto. Chi-Chi stood before her looking like a deer caught in the headlights. But. Chi-Chi took a deep breath. The Interspecies Exchange Bill, Article 1A subsection 2 clearly states all handlers must be declared competent before being assigned to the program. Aren't you forgetting a little bit at the end? Smith smiled. Chi-Chi frowned. It says competency is decided by the local cultural exchange coordinator. And who am I? Ms. Smith finished her coffee. Refill please. Seriously? When did I become everyone's servant? Naruto grumbled as he took her cup and refilled it. Yesterday when you decided to prevent the world achieving peace and dragged me kicking and screaming into this world. Kagaya paused in her meal to toss a carrot slice from her salad to a sad-looking bunny. The local cultural exchange coordinator. Chi-Chi frowned. Listen, Smith paused to take her cup back from Naruto. I know he might not look like much, sound like much or even smell like much. I am spitting in your next coffee. Naruto warned. Do not disgrace my name by being such an inferior servant. Kagaya warned. But, Smith continued. He has potential. That's why I decided to send you to him. It's just a shame there aren't more like him. There are so many girls who need a handler like Naruto-kun here. Flattery won't get you anywhere, Naruto grumbled. So why are you here? Oh, just seeing how things are going. And eating the food you had brought for us. Naruto deadpanned. Well, if someone offers me food it would be rude not to accept. Ms. Smith laughed. On that note. She waved the empty cup at him. Seriously. Naruto summoned a Kage Bunshin. Stop wasting my chakra. Ha. Ms. Smith blinked as she saw the Kage Bunshin take her cup and fill it up. Say. Those are solid clones, right? Yeah, Naruto nodded. How many? How many can you make? Thousands. Naruto shrugged. He. Ms. Smith started chuckling darkly. I have a feeling that you shouldn't have told her that. Kagaya sighed. I never thought I would say this, but I agree with the bunny. She already knows your weaknesses and now you are telling her your strengths. I'm sure you're over-exaggerating. Naruto glanced at Ms. Smith. At least. I really hope you are. Later that day. Kuriko Smith was practically dancing as she entered her office. Even the subpar coffee she had gotten from the office couldn't ruin her mood. As she approached her desk, the usual intimidating pile of representatives in need of a new host stood waiting, but she had a secret weapon now. Flicking through the files, she selected the most dangerous and dropped them all into box, and rummaging through her desk, pulled out a black marker and scribbled Naruto on front of it, before putting the box to one side. Well, that was a productive day's work. She sighed happily. I think it's almost dinner time. Maybe I should check in with Naruto to see if Chi-Chi is still being troublesome. She smiled as she left her desk. And if they happen to be having their dinner and offer me a bit of the meal, well, it would be rude to turn it down, now wouldn't it? When the sun rose, it was to a peaceful scene. There was a gentle breeze that ruffled Naruto's hair as he watched the sun rising. A tired and disgruntled Chi-Chi stood beside him. As she took in Naruto's calm smile, she couldn't help but feel a little relaxed herself. Even though she was planning to explain to Ms. Smith that she couldn't possibly stay with such an inexperienced handler, she was enjoying this brief moment of quiet. You know you don't have to follow me, right? Naruto chuckled as he looked over his shoulder at her. I'm not going to run off or anything. Article 21D, subsection 2, a representative must not stray more than 100 yards, 91.4 meters, from their handler without a written letter from the coordinator expressing that the representative is adjusted enough to cope without a human handler. Chi-Chi stated. Naruto opened his mouth to argue but then decided against it. If following the rules made her happy, who was he to judge? He settled for leaning on a rotten wooden fence and surveying the fruits of his LBR. The house looked okay from the outside, but only the bare minimum had been done inside. In fact, only Kagaya's room was finished, although Kagaya had made it quite clear that it wasn't up to her noble standards. Chi-Chi had been given what was supposed to be his room, which had had the walls and floors repaired, but was still lacking furniture. He had slept in the kitchen, the only other room that kept out the cold. Whilst Chi-Chi hadn't complained, he felt guilty at making her sleep in such a bare room and resolved to finish her room before starting on his own. Even if he wasn't going to be here long, hopefully, he could at least leave it so that Chi-Chi would have a nice place to live in when he returned to Konoha. Right then, Naruto suddenly declared. Time to get to work. Work? Chi-Chi asked. That's right. Naruto looked at the farm. This place isn't going to build itself. When I'm finished with it, it'll be a fully working farm. With all sorts of, farmy things like chickens and, rice. He finished weakly. To get us some food and such, you know. Do you know anything about farming? Not a thing, Naruto proudly declared. But I have a neat little trick to learn new stuff. Oh. See. Naruto smirked as he summoned a Kage Bunshin. Anything these guys learn is transferred to me when they're dispelled. I see, Chi-Chi frowned softly. May I ask something? You don't need to ask me permission to ask me a question, Naruto chuckled. Just ask me, okay? In accordance with Article 21E, I shall acknowledge your request. Chi-Chi replied, hiding a smile at Naruto's exasperated sigh. I was wondering. Are you really human? Yup, Naruto nodded proudly. But you can do such wondrous things, Chi-Chi frowned. None of this was explained in the documents I have read about humanity. Naruto saw something over Chi-Chi's shoulder and choked back a laugh. I guess you could say I'm special. Good morning, Kagaya-chan. Did you have a nice sleep? That is Kagaya-sama to you. Kagaya scowled at Naruto, who was wearing a grin so wide it threatened to split his face in half. Is something amusing to you, servant? No, nothing. Naruto turned to survey the land. Just thinking about all the work it's going to take to get this place into shape. Such a task should be easy to someone who calls themselves my servant. I don't call myself that. Naruto deadpanned. He is our handler and as per Article 21D he should be treated with respect. Chi-Chi remarked before her face went strangely blank as she saw Kagaya's face. I see you are still here, Kagaya turned to face her. I could care less about the laws you preach, vulgar spider. Good morning. Chi-Chi found herself staring over Kagaya's shoulder to avoid looking at her face. See, this one gets it. Kagaya smirked. She understands that a vulgar being such as herself does not have the divine right to gaze upon my face. Sure. Chi-Chi mumbled. Do not laugh. Whatever I do, I cannot laugh. Remember the exchange laws. Well, your face is a sight to behold. Naruto nodded. What are you planning? Kagaya stared at Naruto, distrust apparent in her eyes. Your words seem true, but I feel there is more behind what you say. Oh, nothing, Naruto whistled innocently. By the way, you haven't washed your face yet, have you? No, Kagaya paused. I used to have servants to do that for me, but I would rather not have your calloused hands caressing my face. My skin is soft and delicate and requires a soft touch. She glanced at Chi-Chi's hands before scowling. It appears I shall have to bathe myself. Well, you can wash your face in the lake, Naruto nodded to the body of water. A servant does not tell their MSTR what to do, Kagaya declared before heading to the body of water. When she sees. Chi-Chi glanced at Naruto. He, Naruto grinned. You insolent servant. Kagaya shrieked as she turned to glare at Naruto. The bunny face paint she was wearing looked ridiculous when combined with her angry glare. I was wrong. This is funny. Kurama's bemused voice sounded from the depths of Naruto's mindscape. Bwahahaha. Naruto fell over laughing as Kagaya stormed over to him, her eyes radiating killing intent. I'm pretty sure almost every rule of the exchange program has just been violated. Chi-Chi hung her head. Whilst it was kind of funny. I will have to report this to Agent Smith. She will see that staying here will only hurt my chances of being a police officer. Chi-Chi glanced at Naruto, who was still rolling around laughing as Kagaya tried to wash her face. Where did you even get that paint? Oh, I found it in one of the barns, Naruto remarked as he staggered to his feet. There was loads of junk in boxes, and when my clones found the face paint we knew what we had to do. Ouch. He frowned as he saw a little bunny bite him on the shin. Geez, what's the big idea? Naruto noticed a group of at least 20 rabbits staring at him. Fine, I'll help her get it off. He was cut off by a strange ringing noise. The phone, Chi-Chi frowned as Naruto pulled out the device. You need to flip it open and it should auto-answer. Oh, Naruto flipped the phone open. Hello. Hi there, Ms. Smith sounded tired. I forgot to go over some details, so I'll be at the property in half an hour. Tell me, have you had breakfast and your morning coffee yet? We don't have anything here to serve, breakfast or coffee. Well, fine, I'll use your allowance to buy you some food. I'll even bring over some workers to make sure your house has everything you need for your new resident. You've met Chi-Chi, correct? Yeah, Naruto glanced at Chi-Chi. For a second I was worried that you hadn't gotten my text. Ms. Smith chuckled. Yeah, I got that, Naruto laughed weakly. Thanks for that. Well, if you really want to thank me you can make me a meal. Ms. Smith hung up. I get the feeling this isn't going to be the last time she tries to mooch a meal off of you. Quit being such a cynic. She's helping us out by fixing up the bits of the house I can't and providing us with food. Besides, it's not as if I'm planning to stay here, is it? As soon as I find a way back home we'll be leaving. And Kagaya? To take her back would be reckless. She's powerless right now and quite a lot of people would want her dead if not captured and experimented on. Wait a minute, you're calling something reckless. You are the most reckless person I know. I'm not reckless. You dive into danger headfirst. That isn't exactly sensible. Kurama chuckled. Naruto scowled as he struggled to think of a comeback. It's not recklessness if you know you can survive it. He finished weakly. That is the kind of argument only a suicidally reckless person would say. Either that or someone who was already dead. Kurama remarked dryly as Naruto made his way to the house, the rest of the journey spent in silence. It's not recklessness if you know it won't kill you. A patchwork woman proudly declared as she poked some stitches across her exposed belly. She wore the standard armor of Moen squad, although her top was open, showing a variety of wounds that had been stitched and bandaged. Some of the bandages were tainted with a strange-looking liquid that didn't smell like BLD. This was Zombina the zombie, Mon Squad's weapons expert. There was a group sigh of exasperation in the MON squad barracks as two of her teammates just shook their heads. But Bina-chan, Manako, the squad's sniper Mono-eye frowned at her zombie teammate. You don't heal naturally. It was only a Bakken, Zombina grinned. It was moved through you like a spear. Doppel, the squad's infiltration expert remarked as she sat, using her hair as a chair. Clearly the target was a lot stronger than we were expecting. Bullet holes are easy to seal but this wound was much more difficult. You were lucky that the wound could have been closed at all. Manako tried to explain her concern to the grinning zombie. You're right. Zombina's sharp teeth gave her an almost feral look, she was a strong opponent. You are focusing on the wrong thing, Manako mumbled under her breath. Meh, Zombina waved her concern off. Hey, where's Tio? Ms. Smith requested her for a mission, prisoner transport most likely. Doppel shrugged indifferently. I see, Zombina frowned. Once again I get left out of the exciting stuff. What if that criminal tries to escape, huh? Tio gets to have the best parts. I didn't even get called when there was the incident with the boss. Ah. Manako nodded softly. With the human and the strange liminal. From what I heard the liminal had weird glowing hands. That was apparently the human, Doppel remarked. How do you know? I was there, Doppel shrugged. Gah. Did everyone except me get a piece of the action? There really wasn't much action after the human pulled himself out of a truck and started to glow yellow and pick people up with the weird glowing hands he created. Doppel shifted until she was a perfect replica of Naruto, golden chakra form and all. Say what? Zombina frowned. I could never do that when I was alive. That sounds pretty awesome. Were they used for any attacks? She leaned forward to look at Doppel. Not really, Doppel returned to her usual form. He just sort of held everyone up then surrendered without a fight. Oh. Zombina seemed a little disappointed. Well, I guess I didn't miss that much. Unless you're lying to me. Why would I do that? To make me feel better. Oh, there was a full-on gunfight, wasn't there? Zombina groaned. I'll bet Manako was firing bullets everywhere. Tio probably threw a car at someone. I can assure you that didn't happen, Doppel shook her head. Besides, I would have thought you would have had enough excitement fighting that exchange student that ran you through. But she didn't throw a car at anyone. Zombina pointed out. No one threw any cars, Doppel shook her head. I'll bet he was a deranged psycho. Zombina's mismatched eyes sparkled. It must have looked like some sort of horror movie when you saw all that death and destruction. You could always just read the report. I think he is strange. Manako frowned. But not a bad person. Oh. Zombina blinked. He could see me when I was in a sniping position. He looked at me straight in the eye and even pointed at me. No human should be able to see that well. Really? Zombina didn't sound convinced. Well, there have been some interesting developments. Doppel smirked. Have you not read the report? Why would I? Zambina mumbled. It's bad enough knowing I got left out of the action without hearing all about it as well. I'll bet the car crashes were epic. Arg. And I was stuck on some stupid SCRT duty. It was quite a pile-up, but fortunately there were no fatalities. Manako nodded. That's probably the only reason that she was able to take the human and liminal into custody without too much fuss. Arg, stop mentioning it. Zambina groaned. But it was you who asked about it, Doppel shook her head. It's interesting what you can find out if you can get a hold of Smith-san's mission reports. How'd you get a hold of them? Zambina asked. Well, Doppel changed her appearance until she looked and sounded like Ms. Smith. Humans are quite easy to fool. She returned to her usual appearance. But it looks like the human isn't actually classified as one. And that means? Zambina asked. Who knows? Doppel smiled. All I know is that his race was entered as other. If he wasn't entered as a human or liminal, what does that make him? Is he a handler or an exchange student? Zambina frowned. And if he causes trouble, can I shoot him? Who knows? Doppel smirked. I'm sure that Smith-san has a plan. Back at Naruto's house. Naruto and Kagaya glanced at each other uneasily before returning their attention to their house guest. Chi-Chi had quietly asked to be excused and had retreated to her still empty room, having not taken Ms. Smith's judgment well. If the coordinator was aware of Chi-Chi's bad mood, she showed no signs of concern. Not bad, she nodded approvingly. Well thanks, Naruto chuckled. I'm not much a cook. The best kind of meal is a free one. Ms. Smith took another sip of coffee. I have a feeling we just got a dangerous insight into your personality, Kagaya frowned. May I ask why you are here? Why? It's my job. She smiled. I had to get people here to make this place livable, although I did underestimate the damage. Fortunately Naruto-kun here did a lot of the strong work that allowed the specialists to do their jobs easier. What exactly is your job anyway? Naruto asked as he summoned some clones to clean up the mess. I am the cultural exchange coordinator, Smith gestured at Naruto. In a nutshell, my job is to keep an eye on the handlers and any exchange students they may be housing to ensure that everything is going smoothly. But didn't you just disregard that vulgar spider's objections a few minutes ago? Kagaya frowned. Well, I could have tried to find her a new handler, Smith sighed. But it's far easier to just leave her here. Besides, she isn't in any danger here. So basically you don't want to do your job, Naruto deadpanned. She'll learn to get along with you, I'm sure. After all, isn't that part of her dream job? Dream job? Naruto blinked. Oh, she hasn't told you? Ms. Smith raised an eyebrow. Well, it isn't for me to say. She stood up and brushed the crumbs from her outfit. As much as I would love to eat free food all day, I have a lot of work to do today. Doing what exactly? Kagaya asked. Well, for your information, I am not only your local coordinator but the liaison for the MON squad, MON being short for Monster Ops, Neutralization, she added, seeing the blank look on Kagaya and Naruto's faces. Due to the rules of the exchange bill, humans and liminals can't harm another without breaking the law. There are those who would violate this law, and whilst the police can arrest humans, they cannot touch liminals. Hence the Monster Ops is a team of liminals who are able to do what the police can't. Oh, so you are kind of like a chunin or maybe even a jounin? A team leader kind of thing. Yes, Smith nodded. In fact, you have already met some of my team. Oh, that armored giant. Naruto grinned, looking at Kagaya. That uncultured oaf dared to manhandle me. The rabbit goddess angrily bit into a carrot with an audible crunch. I'll bet he is some uncouth barbarian who doesn't understand the first thing about being a lady. You'd be surprised. Smith thought to herself. I'm guessing that one-eyed girl was one as well. Naruto chuckled at Kagaya's antics before returning his attention to Smith. Indeed. She was a monoai. Smith looked thoughtful. I suppose I should make sure you are familiar with the different species. I'll send some books later, she finished dismissively. I'm starting to think Chi-Chi should be more worried about you not being fit for your job than me as a handler. Naruto shook his head. I'll have you know I am extremely busy with many important things. Smith shook her head. Those things are probably finding other ways to avoid doing your job, Naruto grumbled. Says you, one of the Kage Bunshin cleaning the kitchen retorted. Those clones, they are copies of you, correct? Kagaya glanced at the muttering clone. Yeah. Then if your clones don't like you, what does that say about you? Kagaya smirked. I'm leaving before I see something that might make me have to perform a suitability test. Ms. Smith grabbed another slice of toast and took a bite. And then I would have so much more work to do if you failed it, and at this short notice too. She left, but not before draining her coffee and grabbing the last slice of toast. Apparently she too is lacking manners, Kagaya snorted. Sunglasses must be almost as common as you, servant. You're still sore about the face paint, aren't you? Naruto dodged a bunny missile. And so are your minions apparently. To touch the face of a noble. Kagaya huffed, one should know their place. You are fortunate that I don't have my powers. Such a crime would deserve the harshest punishment. While you try and think of one, I'm going to check on Chi-Chi. Naruto glanced at Kagaya, who continued eating her salad slowly. Such vulgarity. She scoffed. It's her name, Naruto called out. It's not like I'm going around calling her tips or anything. As such language. Kagaya looked away from Naruto. Do you not know how to speak in the presence of a lady? Air. Naruto frowned, come to think of it, Sakura-chan did always hit me. I guess I don't know. Well, Kagaya smirked. You are fortunate you have such a forgiving and generous MSTR, who shall teach you the error of your ways. I'm going to check on Chi-Chi. Naruto left. If you really want to, anything my clones learn is transferred to me. I see, Kagaya turned to the clone. I wonder if etiquette can truly be hammered into that tiny brain of yours. I believe a short 2-hour lecture should be a good start. You traitor. The clone yelled after the fleeing Naruto. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. Naruto bowed his head as he headed towards Chi-Chi's room. You'll want to be careful. Kagaya may be the only way home. Kurama warned Naruto. Try not to upset her too much. I know. Naruto sighed. If she never regains her chakra, I might have to rely on her to teach me how she opens portals. That means putting up with her for a bit longer. Who knows? Maybe she'll lighten up. In her defense though, she was my enemy less than 24 hours ago. In her defense? She was trying to end the world near enough. How can you defend her? Oh, who am I kidding? This is you we're talking about. Everyone who you beat up seems to become a good person. Although somehow I don't see it happening anytime soon with her. She's just scared. Naruto paused outside Chi-Chi's door. Come to think of it. Maybe that's the case with Chi-Chi too. She has been sent away from her family to live with a complete stranger. Heh, Kurama shook his head. I'm sure you'll make her feel right at home. You're that kind of person. Ah, thanks. Naruto chuckled before knocking on the door. Chi-Chi. Enter. Air. Naruto pushed open the room. Wow, those people Ms. Smith got in really did a number on this place. Her room had all the furnishings that you would expect of a hotel room, including a decent-sized TV on one of the walls. He'd never seen one that was flat like that one, though. The only thing that stood out was there was a hammock instead of bed, on which Chi-Chi was currently laying. The only signs of personalization were a set of official-looking books neatly stacked on a desk and several outfits hanging in the closet, each one neatly hung and ironed. I apologize for leaving, but I was emotionally distraught by Agent Smith's decision. I thought that you would be a hindrance to my future career prospects. What do you want to do? Naruto asked as he walked over to the desk. These are all books on laws and procedures. I want to be a police officer. Chi-Chi smiled softly. Police officer? Naruto frowned slightly. Is that like the Uchiha police of this area or something? Indeed. Chi-Chi nodded. So that means you need to deal with all sorts of unruly sorts, right? That is. Chi-Chi's eyes widened. Oh, I get it now. Agent Smith must have put me here because an officer must be calm and collected at all times. Sometimes we have to deal with members of the public who could be infuriating and unreasonable, so in a way this too is preparing me for my job. Infuriating and unreasonable. Naruto's shoulders slumped. Ah. I apologize. Chi-Chi skillfully climbed out of the hammock. Article 21D, subsection 1 states that human handlers must be treated with respect. I cannot apologize enough for my behavior. No, that's all right. Naruto chuckled. If you don't mind me asking, why do you want to be a police officer? Article. I don't want you to answer me because the law demands it. Naruto interrupted her. I only want you to tell me if you want to tell me. Very well, Chi-Chi bowed her head. I am from a small village not too far away. When the treaty was signed 2 years ago, not all humans took it well. Some liminals are less acceptable to humanity. Whilst those who have milder traits like those of cats and dogs are more widely accepted, those with less appealing traits are usually shunned and feared, like we are monsters. Shunned and feared, Naruto frowned softly, recalling his own past, remembering the cold looks, the hurtful words. That's never pleasant. Indeed, Chi-Chi nodded. I remember there were some humans who were aggressive to us. They formed a sort of anti-liminal group. Usually it was just threats and graffiti, but one day. She scowled. They set fire to one of my neighbors' houses at night when they were sleeping. Did they get out all right? Naruto asked, concern evident in his voice. Yes. Thanks to one person, a human. She smiled softly. Whilst all the other humans were stood back watching, not sure what to do, he raced forwards without any fear and went straight into the burning building to help them escape. When he came out, I asked him, why did he not fear us? Why would he risk his life for us? His answer. Chi-Chi looked at Naruto, because I am a police officer and we help people, regardless of who they are. Human and liminal alike were calling him a hero, and that's when I realized something. If I became a police officer, I could show humans that we are not to be feared and at the same time inspire other liminals to pursue their own dreams. With my hunting instincts, I believe I would make a good police officer, and I was physically fit, so. She gestured to the books. I got in touch with the exchange program and Agent Smith provided me with the books and promised she would find me a suitable handler, even after my application was initially blocked. I see, Naruto nodded. Did they catch the people who lit the fire? No, Chi-Chi shook her head. But I think when they saw that police officer, they must have felt shame. Huh. Their actions were based on fear and ignorance. That's yet another reason why I have to be a police officer. So long as our people are considered mysterious and strange, fear will be prevalent throughout the communities that we live in. That's why I have to prove them wrong, to show them I am not some monster. I am me. Naruto stared into the distance. And one day I will be Hokage. Pardon? Chi-Chi glanced at him. He, Naruto rubbed the back of his head. You might not believe it, but we're kind of similar. We both know the stigma of being hated for something you have no control over. All right. Naruto nodded. I've decided. Decided what? I'm going to help you. Naruto pointed at Chi-Chi. When I'm finished, you'll be the best DMN police officer ever. How? Air. Naruto deflated. Well, I haven't thought that far ahead. He admitted. I mean, I might not be the best at books and stuff, but when it comes to practical work, I'm pretty good. I've got it. I'll make training course that only I can make for you. Really? Yeah, Naruto nodded. You said your request was originally declined, right? Because of that law saying you can't be a risk to the public. Correct. Article 1A Principal Law 3. Well then, Naruto smirked. I can simulate a public environment with my clones. One will be your target and the others will just be normal civilians. But how will I know which is which? I'll have my clones change their appearances so they all look different and give you the details of the criminal. You have to find and catch him. I already told you that I am a talented hunter. Chi-Chi frowned. Well then, why don't we make it fun? Naruto smiled. Since you're so sure of yourself, why don't we make a bet of it? If you're able to complete whatever the goal of the training exercise is, then I'll assist you the only other way I can, by helping you find a handler who is able to help you. However, if you're unable to complete the goal, that means there is something I can teach you and you have to promise to stop being so uptight with the rules. Deal. Chi-Chi nodded. I look forward on seeing your letter to request my transfer. Hee, Naruto grinned. I wouldn't get your hopes up just yet. You're going to be seeing this face for a while. Possibly. Chi-Chi bowed her head. If you don't mind, I would like to stretch out before the exercise as outlined in the Police Academy training guidelines. You love your rules, Naruto chuckled as he left her to her stretches. I totally didn't see that coming. Kurama's voice was practically dripping with sarcasm. What? Another bleeding heart story. Admittedly, you could throw it, but let's be honest, the moment you realized the parallels between you, there was no way you could give up on helping her achieve her dream, is there? Am I that predictable? Heh, you might be the most unpredictable ninja, but you're the most predictable hero in history. I'll take it. Hero is a better title than demon. Naruto shook his head softly and made his way out of the house past the kitchen. Now this is a dessert spoon. Kaguya was still lecturing the clone. It looks like every other DMN spoon. The clone wailed. I think I'll take a different exit. Naruto made a U-turn. Sometime later. And this is a steak knife. Kaguya placed the sharp blade on the table. And this is a carving knife. Does it really matter? The clone protested. Does it really matter? Kaguya looked incredulous. It is quite apparent. If not for me, you would probably descend into barbarism. You should be honored that a noble such as myself is spending her precious time instructing you on these things. One is only as noble as one acts. Aha. The clone looked for a distraction. Oh look, it's Chi-Chi. Are you here to be enlightened? Kaguya turned to face the spider woman, who was wearing a jogging shirt that fell below her waist, acting as both a shirt and a skirt. What is with that strange outfit? Chance. The clone quickly grabbed the steak knife and stabbed itself, his final thoughts before bursting being a prayer that Naruto got the memory of the pain as revenge for forcing him to sit through Kaguya's lecture. I am training with Handler-san, Chi-Chi remarked simply. If I beat his challenge, then he has agreed to help me find a new handler. Then you are probably going to stay here for a while, Kaguya scoffed. Considering that back when I was technically a goddess I failed to kill him, I doubt you would have much more luck. Attempting to kill our handler would be in violation of. Yes, Kaguya sighed. The rules that govern you commoners do not apply to those with noble BLD. She turned to find the clone had dispelled. It appears that my servant is completely useless. He didn't even give the clone enough of my chakra to last through the lecture. Still, I suppose I should be grateful that he at least expended the chakra in a worthy cause. She turned to talk to Chi-Chi, only to find she had left as well. That is fine. I had no longing to converse with that vulgar spider anyway. She turned to the lone rabbit that was sitting on the kitchen table, nibbling the leftovers from her breakfast salad. People of my station, we are destined to stand alone, misunderstood by those we watch over. The rabbit's nose twitched, which Kaguya took as a cue to talk. Your life must be quite easy, she stroked the creature's head. Unburdened by duty and the pressures of nobility. Even before I was a goddess, there were so many who expected so much of me. I was a symbol of hope, of a potential everlasting peace. Now look at me, her shoulders slumped. I am a failure. I failed to save the world. She sat down and laid her head on the table. What a pitiful creature I have become. She glanced at the empty sleeve of her kimono, a pitiful and incomplete creature. The rabbit nudged her head. What is my purpose? She wondered aloud. When I was a goddess it was so clear. I was saving the humans from themselves. I was trying to bring about a true peace, an everlasting peace. But now I find myself helpless and no doubt my home is burning with the fires of war. Without me the world will have descended into complete anarchy. And it is all his fault. Kaguya lifted her head to glare in the direction of the fields where she assumed Naruto was. If he had just accepted my peace, if he had not tried to stop me. She clenched her one fist. I cannot forgive him for that. He doomed our world. But at the same time, I understand him a little better. It was not his intent to cause harm, but much like a child, he knows not what he does. He acts without thinking. The rabbit returned to the salad, crunching noisily on a particularly crispy piece of lettuce. I suppose as a noble it is my duty to overlook the commoners' faults and guide them to better themselves. She sighed as if realizing the depth of the task she had set herself. Still one should not complain. Despite being thrown into a new world he has proven to be surprisingly adaptive. Maybe there is hope for that one. She reached up and slid the horn that he had regenerated for her. He means well. She smiled fondly. Yes. I do not believe he is beyond redemption. The rabbit hopped off of the table. The sad thing is, she shook her head. You probably understood that a lot better than my clueless servant. She shook his head. I shiver to think of what inane training he has cooked up. No doubt wasting more of my chakra. With Naruto. Still so sure you're going to win? Naruto glanced at Chi-Chi who was stood frozen with shock. When you said you could make thousands, I thought you were bragging. Chi-Chi glanced at Naruto. There must be at least 3,000. I don't know, never really tried to count. Naruto shrugged. Chi-Chi returned her gaze to the forest where Naruto had been waiting for her. I wanted to try and use an earth jutsu to make large building-shaped obstacles, but earth isn't really my element. He looked slightly disheartened. I mean I can kind of use it but I don't really know any actual earth jutsu. Jutsu. Techniques, like the Kage Bunshin. May I ask you a question? I am definitely human. May I ask a different question? Oh sure. Are you sure you are human? Yes, Naruto chuckled. So. Chi-Chi's look of shock was slowly fading. What is the task? One of the clones will be a criminal and it is your duty to find him. He, or possibly she, will be holding these bells and milling around in that forest with the other clones trying to escape. Your task is to find him and safely capture him. Once he is captured you are to bring him back to me with the bells. Simple, right? He jingled a pair of bells. When I found these in that barn with the paint I knew I had to use them. I feel like Kakashi-sensei right now. Sure, Chi-Chi nodded. Even with such a large number of people I am sure that I can keep track of one clone. But be warned. If he manages to reach a secret hideout that I have built in the forest, then you lose unless you actually track him to his hideout, then you can still win if you pursue him inside before he returns to me with the bells, Naruto smirked. But that has its own set of risks as. He was interrupted by one of his clones snatching the bells from his hand and running. Officer. I've been robbed. Try and catch me if you can. The clone, who was disguised as Yahiko, made a vulgar gesture before turning around and running, stuffing the bells into a pocket. What? Chi-Chi was caught flat-footed but quickly leapt into action, pursuing the clone with agility that impressed Naruto. Whilst a normal human would find themselves quickly in trouble, her quarry was no normal human. This was a ninja, and as agile as she was, she couldn't quite catch him before he reached the mass of clones. Excuse me, she tried to edge her way through the clones. Hey, watch it, will you? One of clones snapped. I'm standing here. I'm sorry, sir, but... Chi-Chi tried to move. Ah, Wani-sama. Your legs are strange. Can I touch them? A clone disguised as a young girl walked up to her. I'm sorry, but I am in pursuit of a criminal. Her eyes desperately scanned for her prey until she caught bright orange hair. Got you. She smirked as she leapt towards him before blinking as an unfamiliar face looking back at her. No piercings. This is the wrong clone. Can I help you, officer? The clone disguised as Jugo smiled politely. No thank you. She looked around annoyed. Where has he gone? She leapt into a tree and scanned the area. Unlucky, Naruto's voice echoed through the trees and the clones all turned back into Naruto. I lost. Chi-Chi sighed as she returned to Naruto, where the Yahiko clone was twirling the bells around his finger. Well? Naruto smiled at her. Did you think it would be easy and that's why you didn't use your webs? I can't. Chi-Chi looked at him. Long leg type arachne don't spin webs. Oh, I didn't know that. Naruto chuckled. I just assumed that you could. Sorry, that was insensitive of me. It is not your fault. If anything, the fact that you were assigned as my handler without the relevant information is Agent Smith's fault. Are you criticizing a coordinator? Isn't that against the rules? Naruto gasped in fake shock. I am allowed to make criticisms where necessary, Chi-Chi mumbled, although was apparently not too proud of her remarks. Well, I guess that means you lose, Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Let's head back. There is a saying that rabbits die of loneliness, and if Kaguya dies, then I am in a whole heap of trouble. Again. Chi-Chi spoke softly. Pardon? Naruto paused. Again. Chi-Chi repeated louder, a look of determination in her eyes. Okay, Naruto nodded and glanced at the clone. We'll try something a little different this time to keep things interesting. This time the clone will be an aggressive criminal holding several clones hostage. You have to take down the criminal with non-lethal force whilst ensuring none of the other clones die. He nodded to the Yahiko clone who raced off into the forest. Right, Chi-Chi nodded, eager to complete this exercise. Huh, she seems really fired up. I wonder if that's because of the bet. Or maybe I'm an awesome teacher who inspires his students. So it's the bet then. Ignoring the smart but fox in his head, her turned to Chi-Chi. Are you ready? Yes. She nodded. Sir. The Yahiko clone returned and gave a sloppy salute. We have an update on the situation. The target has 6 civilians held hostage in the forest. The target has black hair and a smile that doesn't look quite right. He's located half a kilometer inside the forest and appears to be armed. Understood, he glanced at Chi-Chi. Are you ready, officer? Yes, sir. Chi-Chi saluted before heading into the forest. This was her element, stalking an unaware target in order to deliver the killing blow. She paused in that line of thought, reminding herself that she had to try and take the target alive if possible. But she couldn't fail, her future career was counting on her being able to succeed. Back at the house. Kaguya glanced at a clock as she sat in the kitchen, her fingers tapping the surface of the table as she waited for Naruto to show up. How long can it take to train a vulgar spider to? She paused. I don't even know what they are doing, but it shouldn't take this long. She stood up angrily. Who knows what that idiot servant of mine is doing? He probably got sidetracked by a wounded animal and is now racing to deliver it to some sort of animal healer. She chuckled at the thought of Naruto carrying a bleeding fox. I wonder why I instantly thought of a fox. Her attention was drawn to the floor as a couple of rabbits started to nudge her. You are correct, Kaguya nodded. No doubt he is lost in a ditch and requires my aid. He should be grateful to have such a gracious MSTR. She started towards the door, a small trail of rabbits behind her. This is not an unpleasant place to live, Kaguya remarked as she took in the fields. My servant has been quite busy. Maybe in a year or so it would be a place worthy of the presence of one such as myself. She nodded. Funny, as a princess I used to have 100 servants at my beck and call. All trained to the highest standards and aware of their duties. Now I have one who wouldn't know good manners if they hit him in the face. She scowled, although there was a hint of mirth in her features. She continued towards where the most noise was, assuming correctly this would be where Naruto was. What she saw almost made her pop a BLD vessel. So much wasted chakra, she blinked as what must have been around 1,000 clones headed her way. Oh, it's the bunny princess, one of the clones waved at her. Hey Kaguya-chan. That's Kaguya-sama to you. Yeah, the clones waved off her remarks. What are you doing? I am going to speak to the real you. Oh, he's in the forest with Chi-Chi. One of the clones pointed off into the forest. Don't say such vulgar words in the presence of nobility. What would that be? Chi-Chi. Because if it is Chi-Chi then we can stop saying Chi-Chi. Isn't that right? One clone turned to face another clone. That's right. We'll stop saying Chi-Chi if Kaguya-chan wants us to stop saying Chi-Chi. Kaguya rubbed her forehead tiredly. What I wouldn't do for my chakra right about now. He, the clones laughed. Well, we can't all just hang around chatting. Boss says he wants us to work on some of the other rooms. He wants a training room in there. So he has decided to stop just dismissing you. Well, he said if he did you would just complain about it and we should try not to upset you too much. Kaguya preened herself, I see he's starting to respect my noble self. Not really, he just doesn't want to make you hopping mad. Kaguya glare said more than words ever could. We'll be off then, the clones coughed awkwardly, unwilling to spend any more time being glared at by the angry ex-goddess. You do that. Kaguya watched them flee before heading towards where the clones had indicated Naruto to be. With Chi-Chi. As Chi-Chi approached the area the clone had mentioned, she tried to keep a low profile. She saw someone who matched the target but they appeared to be bound up. After a few moments she realized that the clone, disguised as Sasuke, despite not looking like he knew smile properly and dressed like he was from STRPCLB or something, was actually a hostage. The actual target was the one wearing a smile that looked so fake it was painful to look at. Chi-Chi advanced on the position as the clone disguised as Sai walked amongst the hostages, twirling a kunai in his hand. Whilst Chi-Chi was confident she could take down the clone, doing it without killing it would be much more difficult, and that was without taking into account that she had to try and make sure the 6 civilians survived. Her mind raced as she tried to recall the rules for such a situation. TCH, the Sai clone walked over to one of the clones disguised as a child, Hanabi Hyuga to be exact, and picked it up by the scruff of her throat. I'm fed up of waiting for my ransom. Maybe sending a small piece of you back will convince them to hurry up. Please no. The Hanabi clone squirmed. Not good. Chi-Chi quickly charged the target, expertly maneuvering through the undergrowth until she got within leaping distance, her agile movement meaning that the Sai clone was completely unaware of the rapidly approaching liminal until it was too late and the full mass of the liminal came down on him like an angel of vengeance. Unfortunately this meant that the fragile clone dispelled, taking the Hanabi clone with it. For what it's worth, Naruto called from a tree. A real human isn't quite that fragile. He jumped down next to her. For example, I survived being hit by what Ms. Smith called a truck. Judging from the public reaction to that, I don't think most humans can survive that. Hell, if not for me, you might not have survived that. Details, Naruto thought back flippantly. A loss is a loss. Those are the rules of the challenge. Chi-Chi sighed. One more time. Again. Again. Heh, Naruto nodded. Let's see. What can this third test be? How about you try and catch me? You. Chi-Chi tilted her head. That's right, Naruto nodded. Unlike my clones, I won't break so easily. This way you can learn to capture a strong human before working your way towards more fragile targets. To make things fair, I'll only use my chakra to cling to surfaces. I'll head into the forest and wait for 1 hour. After which I'll make my way back here. If I get back here then I win, and if you capture me, you win. You've seen the damage I caused to the clones. It would be in direct violation to Article 1A Principle Law 5, it is a criminal offense for any humans to willingly and knowingly inflict harm upon a representative or put them in a scenario that would lead to injury without written and uncoerced confirmation from both the representative and the handler. This also applies to any harm inflicted upon the handler by a liminal. So basically we both just need to give our approval, right? Naruto tilted his head. Well, yes, but you fail to realize the potential harm that you could suffer. Chi-Chi frowned. Can you summon a god that can send me through dimensions and turn me to ash if you land an attack on me? No. Then I'll be fine. I survived that after all. He grinned widely. Just ask Kaguya how strong I am to kill. Where are you from? Chi-Chi struggled to wrap her head around what he said. Let's just say I'm not from around here. Naruto chuckled. So you still want to try and catch me, or are you too scared now? When I decided to become a police officer I swore I would give it my all. Chi-Chi shook her head. Giving up is not an option. He, Naruto nodded. That's the spirit. You ready? On the count of 3. Chi-Chi stretched out her many legs. 1. Naruto crouched. 2. Hey, what are you doing? Chi-Chi blinked. Being a ninja. Naruto laughed as he set off running early. You cheater. Chi-Chi took off after the grinning ninja. Oh, and criminals always play by the rules. You. Chi-Chi narrowed her eyes as the two sped into the undergrowth. So why are you doing this again? I don't know. It seemed like a good idea. Still, she seems pretty agile. Duck. What? Naruto rolled as Chi-Chi leapt over him, DMN. She can jump. Well, she isn't the only one. Remember. No chakra besides to cling to surfaces. Was that Kaguya? What? Naruto glanced over his shoulder to see the irate goddess and her small army of rabbits traversing the undergrowth. Branch. Oh right. Naruto grinned as he ducked under the obstacle, landing flat against another tree and racing towards the canopy, Chi-Chi quickly scurrying up the neighboring tree matching pace with him. You know, I wasn't expecting you to be this fast. Once I have my prey in my sights, it won't escape. What about those clones that you failed to capture? I underestimated you. Chi-Chi kicked off the tree towards Naruto, who leapt off and grabbed a hold of another branch, watching as Chi-Chi tore through the tree where he would have been stood. Maybe I limited myself too much, Naruto frowned. Hey. Chi-Chi. He tried to spot the spider woman. I get the feeling she decided against a direct assault and is now waiting to ambush you. Ambush a ninja? Ha. Naruto smirked as he dropped to the forest floor. Good luck with that. He looked around, searching for the telltale sign of movement amongst the bushes. She's good. He closed his eyes, listening to the sounds of the forest. Wherever Chi-Chi had gone, she was being awfully quiet. At least I don't have to worry about her setting some sort of trap with webs. He opened his eyes. So. Any plans? Well, technically I can just sit around waiting then head back to the original meeting point to win. I'm guessing she will be hoping to ambush me on the way back and is using this time to set up some traps for me. Naruto looked around before sitting down. And you're going to let her, aren't you? Of course. Naruto grinned as he sat down, enjoying the calm of the forest. He pulled a kunai from his pocket and checked the reflection to make sure she wasn't behind him before picking up a branch and cutting at it. Has an hour passed yet? He thought jokingly. Yes. Kurama responded sarcastically. Wait, really? No, not even close. Ah. Naruto got into a meditative pose. Might as well kill some time then. He sat down, allowing the natural energies to flow through him. I see that this world still has natural energy, even if no one else seems to have chakra. He smiled slightly as he felt the strange energy of the world, familiar yet completely foreign at the same time. He could sense so many life forms around him. This is really a busy little forest, isn't it? He murmured as he extended his senses. Time seemed to flow by quickly until his trance was broken by Kurama. Your hour's up. If you want to keep meditating, don't let me stop you, but remember there's no toad with a staff to beat you here, though. His name is, wait a minute. You're a genius. I know I am. But just in case I had forgotten, why am I a genius? The toads. Naruto stood up, dispelling the natural energy he had gathered. They can reverse summon me back home. Maybe. Kurama was skeptical. But the chakra required to summon one here must be astronomical. I doubt we could do it. Well, we can at least try. Naruto grinned. Now. I suppose it can wait until we finish this test. Naruto glanced into the forest. You think she's finished yet? I suspect yes. What do you? Naruto instinctively rolled forward and started to run as the sound of Chi-Chi tearing through the undergrowth sounded directly behind him. Being a little noisy, isn't she? He started towards the tree line, but Chi-Chi cut him off, forcing him to change directions and leap into the trees, Chi-Chi following behind him. Every time he tried to change direction, she quickly leapt in the way of his attempt to escape, forcing him to follow the route she wanted. Just what is she planning? She only had an hour to prepare. Naruto frowned as he easily kept his distance from her. She isn't even trying to chase me down now. What is she planning? He ran across the forest floor, tracking her movements out of the corner of his eyes. Just a little longer. Chi-Chi smiled as she saw Naruto heading towards her trap. No matter which direction I attack from, you can just jump out of the way. In order to capture you, I have to leap when you're in mid-jump and unable to alter your course. Do you think she plans to lose? Naruto wondered. No. She has a similar look in her eyes to you. She won't give up. Heh, I knew there was something about her that was familiar. Naruto smirked as he approached some bramble bushes that marked the edge of the forest, almost home free. Here we go. Chi-Chi prepared herself. And away we, CRP. Naruto cried out in alarm as he leaped over the bushes, twisting his body to narrowly miss several beehives in the tree. Phew, that was close, he chuckled before stepping forward and feeling something catch on his leg. As he tugged his leg free, he saw the familiar glint of a trip wire and the beehives briefly shook, followed by the sound of angrily buzzing bees starting to leave the hives. Not today. Naruto leapt backwards from the hives and their guardians. Here's my chance. Chi-Chi dived at the airborne Naruto. Huh. Naruto's eyes widened. Clever girl, he regretted his handicap. Without his other abilities he was a sitting duck, so he did the best he could and braced for the inevitable impact. Mission achieved, Chi-Chi declared as she grabbed Naruto tightly, the speed of her impact knocking the air from his lungs as she came down to land, only to realize too late that she had been so focused on catching Naruto, she had launched herself at him more energetically than she had planned to. Rather than a soft landing on the grass, the two of them were headed straight for the lake next to the farm. She braced herself for an impact that never came. A sudden surge of warmth spread through her body and she found herself held above the water by a glowing yellow limb. Naruto himself was stood atop the water's surface. How? Chi-Chi blinked as the golden limb put her down on the shore. Chakra, Naruto replied simply as he walked over to the shore. It's kind of like a natural energy that powers me and my jutsu. Thank you, Chi-Chi nodded, whilst I wouldn't have died, being submerged is extremely unpleasant for me. It appears that you may have some latent talent as a handler after all. Air. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Thanks I guess. So you're not a big fan of water, huh? It's just that my lungs are in my abdomen, Chi-Chi gestured to her spider half. In what you could call my rear. I can breathe through the surface of my skin, so when I am submerged, while it won't kill me, it feels like I'm suffocating from all sides. Wait. You breathe from your butt? Naruto blinked. I leave you alone for an hour and already you have dropped to that vulgar spider's level, a disapproving Kaguya remarked as she emerged from the forest, her kimono looking slightly worse for wear. Oh hi Kaguya-chan. Kaguya-sama, the former goddess brushed herself off and sat down. You shall address me as Kaguya-sama. Whatever you say Kaguya-sama-chan. I will not sink to your level, Kaguya scoffed. I have just one question. Oh. Why? Why are you wasting my chakra? She pointed at his golden form. Oh this? Naruto laughed weakly. Well you see we were going to fall into the lake so I called on Kurama's power to stop Chi-Chi and I from getting soaked. So you wasted my chakra because you didn't want to get wet. Kaguya remarked. When you put it like that it seems less cool, Naruto grumbled. Nothing about you is cool, except your association to me. Kaguya remarked. As my servant that is. You know what, I was going to let you come back home with me, but now I think I'll just leave you here, Naruto crossed his arms. You mean to tell me you have found a way back home? Kaguya's eyes lit up slightly. I'm pretty sure I have, Naruto allowed himself a moment of smugness. I mean it would take a lot of chakra. It would finally be a use that wasn't a complete waste, Kaguya smiled. Huh. Naruto chuckled. This must be one of the first times I've actually seen you smile. You should do that more. It suits you. It is the duty of a servant to compliment their MSTR, Kaguya remarked. Although admittedly my old servants never seemed quite as sincere with their compliments as you just did. I can't even say anything nice to her, Naruto turned to Chi-Chi who looked bemused at their interactions. So I guess this is goodbye then. You are leaving? Well hopefully. Just as well really, considering you successfully captured me. That means I have to write a letter for you to find a new handler. Air. Chi-Chi frowned softly. I don't believe I won. Huh. 2 out of 3 times I was soundly beaten. I am grateful that you even allowed me more than one chance. Chi-Chi bowed her head. As per the rules that we agreed upon, I am to stay with you. But I might be heading back home. Article 2A, Subsection 1. A handler is responsible for the well-being of their assigned representatives until the relevant body qualifies the representative for human integration without a handler or the handler is deemed incapable of performing their duties. Chi-Chi quoted. Until Agent Smith says otherwise I must stay with you. What are you saying? If you are to leave this residence then I must accompany you. Chi-Chi stated firmly. But, Naruto blinked. We could be going far away. There is no limit on the reach of the law. Kaguya. A little help. I'm sorry. Kaguya looked at him. You can't have been talking to me. Fine, Naruto sighed. Oh gracious Kaguya-sama. Please help me. He rolled his eyes. No, Kaguya smiled at him. This is for the face paint, isn't it? When will you let that go? Naruto wailed. When you undo ruining the last hope of peace for our home. I just can't win with you, can I? Naruto rolled his eyes. Well. Here goes nothing. He bit his thumb and slammed it down on the floor. Kuchiyos no jutsu. Was something supposed to happen? Kaguya remarked unimpressed. Kurama. Give me all you've got. This isn't going to work. Kurama remarked but relinquished a great deal of chakra regardless. Now to top it all up with a little nature chakra. Naruto took a deep breath and closed his eyes. When he opened them, his eyes, already red from the effect of the cloak, had been replaced by his orange sage eyes with slits through the bars thanks to Kurama's influence. Wait a minute, do you feel that? Kurama tried to get Naruto's attention, but he was too focused on his jutsu to care about anything else right now. Here we go. Kuchiyos no jutsu. Naruto bit his thumb again and poured as much chakra as he could into the summoning. There was a burst of smoke that filled the area, and when it cleared, Naruto let out a whoop of joy. It worked. Naruto laughed. Odd, she doesn't look like the other female toads I met. Maybe after a certain age they all just end up looking like Granny Sage. Air. Kaguya blinked as she took in this new arrival. She had green skin with brown splotches appearing now and again on her arms and legs. She wore what looked like a conductor's hat with blonde bangs covering her forehead. The rest of her hair was tied into a high ponytail that trailed down the large coat she was wearing, its sleeves rolled up to her elbows and her collar lifted up. Beneath the coat she wore only some bindings to cover her modest chest and some dark pants tied at the waist with a rope belt. Kaguya noted that her bare feet were on display, revealing the webbing between her toes that was mirrored on her hands. This one must be even more common than my servant. Chi-Chi found herself instinctively distrusting this new arrival. She looks like some sort of delinquent. What is this ruffian doing here? All right. Naruto grinned. I need you to go back and tell Grandpa Sage to. I ain't doing nothing. The toad girl spat. Naruto blinked. As amusing as this is, Kaguya brushed off her kimono and stood up to leave. I am returning home. I will bathe, then be down to have a meal. I expect the bath to be ready and hot for me in 10 minutes. Where do you think you are going? The toad scowled. To my house. Kaguya retorted. It ain't yours anymore. She declared. You all listen good. My name is Nectafree, but you're going to be calling me Toph-sama from now on. You're my underlings and this is my territory now. The farm was strangely quiet, given the usual hustle of Naruto's clone Strong at work fixing it up. The three residents of the restored building were all stood staring at the new arrival, the toad girl Toph. There was a sort of stunned silence as Naruto and his two charges looked at each other, not quite sure how to respond before Naruto finally spoke. I'm sorry. Naruto frowned, still clad in his golden cloak, his Kyubi-sage eyes focused on Toph. And you should be. Toph crossed her arms atop the bindings covering her modest chest. I'm the boss around here now. I get the feeling she's not from Mount Mayaboku. Naruto scowled. Come to think of it, she does look a lot more humanoid than the other toads. Mount what? Toph scowled. Never heard of it. I could have sworn that I performed the jutsu right, Naruto scowled. What the hell went wrong? Clearly a lowly being such as yourself would never be able to achieve the same feats as I. Kaguya looked proud for a moment. Although I will give you some credit where it is due. You did make an impressive smoke cloud. I'm just going to take that as a compliment. Hey, stop ignoring me, you bastards. Toph pointed angrily at Naruto. You respect the boss, you hear? I don't know what happened, but I was the one who summoned you, so. Naruto started until he was cut off by a derisive snort from Toph. Summoned. Toph snorted. What? You suffering from a case of Chunibyo or something? You can't summon people, idiot, she scoffed. You don't have some sort of magic powers. I've remained silent for too long. Chi-Chi angrily stepped forwards. Handler-san is recognized by the exchange treaty and as such deserves your respect as stated by Article 21D subsection 1. Bite me, Toph spat. You can stick your stupid rules right up your butt. I follow my own rules. How crass, Kaguya scowled disapprovingly. It appears this world is full of foul-mouthed beings like the vulgar spider here. You say something, you stuck-up beach? How about I beat some respect into you? She cracked her neck menacingly. Servant, deal with this unsightly blemish. Just try it. Okay, Naruto held his arms up to calm the situation. Clearly we have gotten off on the wrong foot here. Let's start with the basics, shall we? I'm Naruto and this is Kaguya and Chi-Chi and we live here. Now, you said you're called Toph, right? How'd you get here if I didn't summon you? I go wherever the hell I want. Without a handler? Chi-Chi scowled. Do you have the correct permits? Permits? Toph snorted. I don't need no stinking permits. I don't follow those stupid exchange laws. Wait a minute. Chi-Chi stepped between Naruto and Toph. You admit to being a criminal, breaking the law, in front of me? Maybe I am, what is it to you? It is my duty as a future police officer to place you under citizen's arrest. She produced some HNDCFFS from her belt. You think those little things can keep me contained? Toph sneered. You'll never be able to capture me, you useless copper. Why not go back to eating donuts and getting fat? You beach. Chi-Chi twitched with rage. How dare you mock the honorable profession of policing? I refuse to stand back and let some delinquent frog mock such an honorable occupation. What did you call me? Toph lowered her head so that the cap of her hat covered her eyes. You heard me, you delinquent frog. I'm going to enjoy this. Toph raised her head again, her eyes glowing with righteous fury. I'm not a frog, you stupid beach. She opened her mouth and launched her tongue with lightning-quick speed, but her attack never found its target. Faster than either Chi-Chi or Toph could see, Naruto had stepped in front of Chi-Chi and grabbed Toph's tongue. Now, Naruto sighed. Let's calm down, shall we? He released Toph's tongue. I know from experience that toads tend to get upset when you call them frogs. She insulted policing. Chi-Chi narrowed her eyes. And she's a criminal. So. You're the boss then? Toph grinned. You the one who's but I have to kick in order to run this place. What? Chi-Chi scowled. Threatening a handler. That'll get you deported. Like I give a DMN. I'm still gonna crush him. Toph pointed at Naruto. A liminal handler, huh? After I kick his butt I'll take that title too and use it to build up my gang of liminals. I'll be the most badass gang leader ever. Trust me, Naruto shook his head. You don't want to do this. Oh but I do, Toph crouched. If you impress me I might even let you stay on as my lieutenant or something. Handler-san, Chi-Chi frowned. It is against the law for a human to injure a liminal. Allow me to apprehend her. Don't worry, Naruto chuckled. I'm not going to hurt her. DMN straight you aren't, Toph yelled as she launched herself full speed at Naruto. You gonna be seeing stars. I doubt that. Naruto ducked under her attack, resulting in the toad soaring over the top of Naruto and landing heavily on the ground, where she quickly regained her footing and lashed out with her tongue, a victorious glint in her eye as the tongue wrapped around Naruto's arm and pulling him towards her. Only to be surprised when Naruto was replaced by a section of old piping that had been torn away from the old building during the renovations. Naruto watched as Toph, somewhat confused by what had happened, was a second too slow to react and struck herself in the face with the pipe before releasing it from her tongue. That wasn't against the exchange laws, was it? Naruto glanced at Chi-Chi. That was technically self-inflicted. Chi-Chi replied. So I'll overlook it. Arg-DMN. Toph glared at Naruto. How the hell did you do that? I had you right where I wanted you. As if a simple attack like that would be enough to stop the future Hokage, Naruto proudly boasted. Pride cometh before the fall. Kurama warned. I'm sure that Kaguya would have said it would take more than a small group of sexy, naked pretty boys to distract her, but we all remember how that played out. And Irika-sensei said that was a stupid technique. Naruto shook his head. Incoming. Huh. Naruto yelped in shock as the angry amphibian leapt at him again, relying on large leaps to close the distance, but for all her angry yells and furious swings, she never looked like landing a solid hit on Naruto. This feels kind of familiar, Naruto mused. What, an angry girl trying to clobber you? You're thinking of that pink-haired girl, right? Sakura? Yeah. I wonder how she's doing since we ended up here. Do you think her and Sasuke are trying to find a way to bring me back? I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. What's the big idea? Toph noticed Naruto's distant look. Pay attention to me when we're fighting DMN. Ah, sorry, Naruto rubbed the back of his head. I was just getting nostalgic. Huh. You remind me of an old friend. She had a mighty temper and quite a bit of strength as well. Not to mention they're both lacking in the chest department. That's true, Naruto thought aloud. Both Sakura-chan and Toph do have small chests. What did you say? Toph seemed to glow with rage. Probably shouldn't have said that out loud. Naruto blinked. So what if my chest is small? It's the perfect size for kicking your butt, you bstrd. Toph launched herself at the flustered Naruto, who was trying to apologize, but all Toph could hear was the BLD pounding in her ears. Take this, you BRST maniac. She struck Naruto with all her might, causing him to skid backward slightly with some bruising on his cheek. That's assault. Chi-Chi stepped forward. I can no longer stand back. You are acting in violation of Article. It's okay, Naruto winced as he rubbed his cheek, the golden chakra cloak having protected him from any serious damage. Do you feel better now? Sakura-chan always seemed to calm down after I let her hit me. Naruto smiled slightly as he raised a hand to touch the bruise. Ouch, that stings. Quit being such a baby. You've been skewered through the chest by your best friend. That's serious physical and emotional damage. Compared to that, this is barely a gentle tap on the wrist. Kurama rolled his eyes as he settled down in Naruto's mind. You're saying you let me hit you? Toph scowled. Just admit that you are no match for me. So you still want to fight? Naruto sighed. Oh well. I guess it's time to end this then. I'll end your face. Toph threw another punch, but this time Naruto simply leaned to the side, allowing the angry toad's attack to miss. Having put all of her weight into the blow, the complete lack of impact caused her to stagger forwards. Before Toph even had time to register that her attack hadn't landed, Naruto had swept her feet from below her and pinned her to the floor on her back, a knee firmly but gently placed against her stomach and a kunai held just above her throat so as to not cut her, yet still make it clear that any struggling would probably not end well for the new arrival. What the hell happened? Toph blinked. That was too fast, Goldilocks. Handler-san. Is that a weapon? Chi-Chi frowned. It's a kunai, Naruto nodded. Do you have the relevant permit? Permit? The blonde ninja looked confused. What for? The weapon. Chi-Chi frowned. It's against the law in Japan to carry a blade with a length in excess of 6 centimeters. You could face 2 years in jail and up to 300,000 yen. Please use these HNDCFFS. She handed the HNDCFFS she had taken out earlier to Naruto. Let me go. Toph squirmed as Naruto held the HNDCFFS uncertainly. Fine, I give up. You happy? There, you have dealt with the issue, Kaguya remarked. Now stop wasting my chakra. I'm pretty sure you could have ended that at any time. Your prolonging of the conflict only served to waste more chakra. You should be more frugal with its application, you wasteful servant. Geez, Naruto rolled his eyes as he allowed his golden cloak to disperse, retaining his sage mode to deal with the Toad Girl's impressive strength. Anyone would think it wasn't a renewable energy source. Maybe for some, Kaguya remarked testily. Oh right. Sorry. Naruto laughed weakly before looking down at Toph, so you said you had surrendered, right? What kind of a liminal are you? Toph frowned. Wait, your eyes. She stopped her struggling for a moment on seeing the familiar toad eyes. Are you, like me? I'm a human, Naruto assured her as he dropped his sage mode. But I have a bit of an affinity with toads. Toph didn't quite understand what that meant, but accepted the explanation. Now are you going to settle down and talk, or do I have to keep you pinned like this? TCH, Toph looked away. I'll talk on one condition. Oh. That stupid copper apologizes for calling me a frog. I ain't no slimy frog. I'm a toad-type bullywug. Well. Naruto glanced at Chi-Chi. You wish for me to apologize to this, delinquent? Isn't there a rule about treating other liminals with respect or something? Well yes, but that's only members of the exchange program. She is a criminal. Then how about the one that says you should listen to your handler? You are correct, of course. Chi-Chi scowled at Toph. Go on then. Toph grinned. Sorry, Chi-Chi scowled. For calling you a frog. You are a delinquent though, and one that should be deported. That'll do. Toph smirked as Naruto released her and helped her to her feet. I apologize sincerely for my conduct. As an exchange student, I should behave in a way that does not reflect negatively on my handler. As such, I am truly sorry for behaving in such an unsightly manner. Chi-Chi bowed her head to Naruto. I fully understand if you wish to report my actions to Agent Smith. Don't worry about it, Naruto smiled at Chi-Chi. You are too kind, Handler-san. Geez, get that weepy CRP out of here, Toph snorted. I'm sorry, did you say something? Chi-Chi narrowed her 6 eyes. What? All those donuts you eat affecting your hearing, copper? Toph cupped her ear. You need me to speak louder? Clearly you have taken too many blows to your cranium in your delinquent pursuits. It's affecting your mental processes. Chi-Chi scowled at the toad. It appears the vulgar spider and the miscreant are going to be a nuisance again. Kaguya yawned. I am heading home. While I should have expected you to fail, you managed to actually fail even worse than I was expecting. What a useless servant. Hey, Naruto defended himself. At least I am still trying to find a way back home rather than sitting around acting all high and mighty. Kaguya paused and frowned. Maybe I was little too harsh with my words. She turned to leave, hiding a slightly saddened expression. And that's probably as close to an apology as I'm going to get. Naruto sighed. DMN, she's a beach, Toph scoffed. Kaguya-san is a little frigid at times, Chi-Chi frowned. If I were to identify an issue with her, it would be her lack of respect for Handler-san, in direct violation of the exchange laws. Well, it's not like she doesn't have her reasons. Naruto sighed. I mean, I'm sort of the reason she's trapped here, has no powers and is missing an arm. I don't even want to know. Anyway, she should still respect you, Chi-Chi stated. It is clearly stated in article. I know, Naruto cut her off. She's probably just suffering from culture shock. She'll get better with time. At least I hope she gets better. There's only so much of her sneering I can take. If you are sure. Chi-Chi didn't look convinced but dropped the subject regardless. Stuck-up beaches like that really pisses me off. Toph snorted. Say Toph. If I didn't summon you, then how'd you get here? Naruto returned his attention to the amphibian liminal. She leapt into the cloud of smoke while everyone was focused on you. Kurama informed him. She seemed to come from the direction of the road. Wait, you knew she wasn't summoned? Why didn't you tell me? I tried but you were too busy wasting our chakra. Oh gods, I'm turning into the bunny hag. Naruto shook his head with a soft smile as Toph prepared to tell her story. Heh, Toph smirked as she stared off into the distance. Truly, it was an epic battle. There I was, armed only with my Bakken against a small army of ogres and undying zombies. They tried to crush me but I held my own, fiercely battling until one of the cowards knocked me out from behind. Then, as they were transporting me in a heavily armed convoy with elite soldiers guarding me, but as soon as I woke up, I broke free of my chains, kicked the asses of those elites and broke out of the convoy. Really? Naruto raised any eyebrow. Yeah, and then. Toph suddenly went silent as a large vehicle pulled towards the house. It was a heavily reinforced transport with the back doors hanging off as if some sort of explosion had forced them open. The vehicle pulled up in front of the farm, its engine spluttering loudly as it drew to a halt and a familiar figure stepped from the back of the transport with a cheerful smile. What is that racket? Kagaya sighed, returning the group upon hearing the transport drive up. Sunglasses is here. It must be approaching a meal time then. A large armored figure followed Ms. Smith out of the back of the vehicle. Him, Kagaya ground her teeth angrily. That uncultured oaf who threw me over his shoulder like some kind of sack of food. She finished weakly. I'm not cooking a meal right now, Naruto remarked dryly as Ms. Smith and Tio approached. Now, Smith sighed. You make it sound like I only ever show up to bum a meal off of you. I'll have you know I'm here on official business. I see you've met Nectafri-chan. Naruto put two and two together, so I'm guessing that's the armored convoy you escaped from. He glanced at the beat-up truck. Why yeah, Toph glared at Tio. This time you won't take me by surprise. Surprise? Naruto blinked. Oh, Nectafri is just upset that Tio picked her up in a bear hug she couldn't escape from. Kind of like that. Ms. Smith pointed to the toad girl who was lifted off of the ground in the steel grip of one of Tio's hugs. Hey. Toph squirmed. Let me go. Don't do it, Tio, Ms. Smith shook her head. Can't have her running away again. An army of ogres, huh? Chi-Chi scowled at the sweating Toph. As expected of a delinquent, you were lying through your teeth. I'll bet there wasn't even any zombies. Oh, there was one, Ms. Smith nodded. Zombina-chan. It seemed like more, Toph weakly protested. So why were you here then if not to mooch food? Naruto crossed his arms. Well, I would like to tell you but my throat is just so parched. As a good host, you'll offer me some coffee while I talk, won't you? Ms. Smith smiled. Should have seen that coming. Naruto, Kagaya and Chi-Chi all shared the same thought for a moment. Well, let's head back to the house and you can tell me all about it, Naruto sighed. If you insist, Ms. Smith smiled. A few moments later. The gang were all sat around a table in Naruto's dining area. As with most of the rooms, this large meeting area was largely devoid of decoration. There was a large table, which seemed to have been designed with the taller liminals in mind as Chi-Chi had little difficulty getting comfortable. Toph had easily leapt onto her chair opposite the spider girl but Kagaya had needed Naruto's assistance to climb into the slighter larger chairs, much to her embarrassment. Kagaya sat scowling. It was embarrassing enough that she needed to be helped onto her chair, but to add insult to injury, she had been provided with a pair of chopsticks that were proving difficult to separate with one hand. After watching her nearly knock over her drink, Naruto decided he had to do something. "Air. Do you need a hand?" Naruto offered. "I do not require assistance for such a basic task," Kaguya replied angrily as she continued in her efforts. "If I had my full power I could create my own chopsticks. Now I find myself at the mercy of a small piece of wood." She glanced at the loose kimono sleeve where her arm should have been, had a certain blonde ninja not torn it from her. She felt a spike of anger and helplessness which was only compounded when Naruto took the chopsticks from her and separated them. "We don't have to be enemies," Naruto pointed out as he returned the chopsticks. "Do not flatter yourself." Kaguya refused the chopsticks, her pride severely wounded, and she retaliated using the only weapon she had left, her disdain and scorn. "You are not important enough to earn the title of enemy. Would you call the gnat buzzing in your ear an enemy?" Naruto bit back an angry retort. "I need her to get back home. I can't forget that." He let out a sigh and chose to ignore Kaguya and return his attention to Smith, Chi-Chi and Toph. "So," Naruto prompted, "you were going to tell me the story behind Toph." "There's no rush," took a sip of coffee. "Ah, this is the stuff," she nodded happily as a Kage Bunshin poured her another cup of coffee. "I don't suppose that I could borrow one of these clones as a sort of servant." She nodded to the clone stood next to her, "They seem to be quite useful." "It's an impressive ability you have." "It is, isn't it?" Naruto grinned happily at the positive response to his favorite technique. "Careful, Naruto. Don't go falling for a few compliments. She'll have you waiting on her every moment of the day if you let your guard down." "I'm not that weak to compliments." Naruto rolled his eyes. "Would you mind if I kept this clone?" "Wait, what?" The clone blinked. "He makes such a good cup of coffee." Ms. Smith took another happy sip. "Oops," the clone spoke in a deadpan before dropping the boiling coffee he was holding on his foot, dispelling him in an instant. "Idiot clones," Naruto groaned. "Aren't the clones copies of you?" Kaguya asked as she sipped her carrot juice, her bunnies all edging around her slowly as if they sensed the storm of negative emotions whirling through her right now. "Yes, and? So wouldn't that mean you're an idiot as well? Well, how does it feel to have been sealed away by an idiot?" Kaguya opened her mouth and shut it a few times, unable to think of a good comeback. "Agent Smith," Chi-Chi cleared her throat as Kaguya struggled to think of something to say, "I was wondering if I might ask a question." "Of course." Smith was grateful for the change in topic. The tense mood was ruining her appetite. Not that she wouldn't eat a free meal, mind you, she just wouldn't be able to enjoy it as much. "Well," Chi-Chi glared at Toph, "this criminal is clearly a threat to any possible host, so I was wondering what the plan was in regards to her deportation." "I ain't going nowhere," Toph declared. "You're a criminal and should be sent away. Preferably to a prison of some sort where you belong." "There ain't no prison that can hold me," the toad type boasted proudly. "Well," Smith chuckled. "Under the usual circumstances, the offender would be transferred to a secure location until all the arrangements could be made with the exchange student's homeland. Then they would be sent home as quickly as possible. Usually there are also a few political hurdles that need to be cleared before deportation can take place, though. I would be willing to lend any assistance that you require of me in order to see this delinquent brought to justice." "Fight me." Toph slammed her palms on the table angrily. "What a lively household," Smith chuckled. "Air. Where's your friend?" Naruto made a gesture with his arms to indicate the tall figure who had accompanied Ms. Smith. "OTO. I figured it would be rude to have my subordinate wear that heavy armor while eating the meal you're so generously going to prepare." "Oh," Naruto frowned. "I don't know what sort of food he likes." Ms. Smith smiled mischievously. "Oh, it doesn't really matter. Just normal food will probably do, although if you can make a sweet dessert, I think Tio would appreciate that. Okay, Naruto turned to a group of clones who were running around the kitchen. I guess the food will be ready soon. You were going to tell us why you're here, right? Oh right, Smith nodded. Well you see, I was on my way here with Tio and Nectafree-chan. Earlier in the transport. Let me go. You can't keep me caged. Toph declared as she struggled to break the chains that connected the HNDCFFS she was wearing to the floor of the van. She was sitting on a bench in the back of the large transport, trying to squirm free. Sitting beside her was Tio, fully clad in her armor with one hand on the toad-typed shoulder to prevent her escape should she somehow get out of her chains. Ms. Smith was sat opposite Toph, a half-empty cup of coffee in one hand and a collection of files in the other. You've just been arrested for attacking your handler and trying to take over his house. Ms. Smith raised an eyebrow at Toph. All in all, you're lucky that you aren't in some sort of straitjacket. You pose a significant risk to those around you. Bite me. Toph spat at Ms. Smith. You could at least give me my Bakken. I don't think so. Ms. Smith rubbed her forehead. Do you know how much damage you did to one of my team members? She could have dodged, Toph frowned. It's not my fault your lackeys lack self-preservation instincts. Zombina-chan is a special case, Tio remarked. Besides, Toph scowled at Ms. Smith. I was perfectly justified. That BSTRD called me a frog. Like hell I was going to put up with that. Your handler didn't mean it as an insult, Tio tried to calm the furious toad-type bullywug. Like hell he didn't. Toph started to squirm angrily. Do I look like some sort of slimy frog? Why the hell are they just called bullywugs anyway? Shouldn't they be called frog types if I have to be called a toad type? It's DMN speciesism you lousy bastards. Please stop struggling, Tio frowned softly. Why? So they can send me to jail or kick me out of the country, Toph scoffed. Like hell I'm giving up that easy. Fight me. Toph tried ineffectively to headbutt Tio. Not so tough in a face-to-face fight are you? Air. Tio glanced at a bemused Smith as the furious Toad Liminal tried to headbutt through Tio's armor. If my Bakken hadn't gotten stuck in that zombie I would have kicked all of your sorry asses. Toph yelled. My, Smith chuckled. You are going to be quite a handful. She opened the file on her lap and read it. Nectafree, Toad-type bullywug. Current violations to the exchange program include violence against a host, behavior liable to cause harm to the public, and excessive profanity. Ms. Smith rubbed her forehead. Why did you join the program in the first place? Because I could, Toph shrugged. What coordinator let you into the program with such a half-assed reason? Smith turned over the page. Oh. Who was it? Tio asked. And never mind that, Smith coughed awkwardly. I suppose it would be easier to just send you home then. It isn't as if you have any goals to achieve. Like hell. Toph declared. I decided I was going to be in this program and that's it. My pride won't allow me to back down now. Well, fortunately for you, there is one last handler I could assign you to. I don't think he would have too much trouble dealing with you, but be warned this truly is your last chance. Ha! You must think I was born yesterday. There's no human that can handle me. Toph smirked proudly. I'm a total badass. I only follow my own rules so you can tell your handler to shove it. You're determined to give me more work, aren't you? Ms. Smith pushed her sunglasses up. Unfortunately for you, I don't have the time to do more work, so you're being assigned to my specialist handler. Ms. Smith continued to read the paperwork, making sure to edit out all mentions of her name in the approval process. Unfortunately for the work-shy Smith, there were a lot of documents that mentioned her and if it got back she had approved Toph's assignment, she would likely be forced to take the refresher course, which was a week of the most boring classroom-based learning Ms. Smith had ever had the misfortune of being sent on. Twice. Specialist handler. Toph frowned. That doesn't sound good. Is it some sort of internment camp? CRP, I need to figure a way out of here. Don't worry. Tio tried to reassure Toph. While I've only briefly met this handler, Ms. Smith speaks highly of him. I'm sure that you'll be happy with him. TCH, Toph scowled. Probably just another lecher who wanted to be surrounded by cute girls. Then he'll see me and be all, oh no, this isn't a cute lamia or a cat girl. Maybe he likes frogs and toad types. Why the hell would you say those two things together? Toph growled. They are completely different things. Ah, sorry, many people wouldn't know the difference. Tio tried to explain. Oh, so that makes it okay. Maybe I should just refer to you as a giant 'cause you're so freaking huge. How's that make you feel, huh? You freaking giant. WL, Tio slumped slightly. She was already quite concerned about her height without Toph pointing it out. Toph narrowed her eyes as Tio removed her hand from Toph's shoulder and started to wring her hands nervously. So they are both distracted. This is my chance. She closed her eyes and started to focus on bad memories, the first time she had met her original handler, the look of disappointment on his face and his request for a cuter liminal. As her anger grew, her body started to emit a toxin from the bumps on the back of her neck. After pausing to make sure Tio and Smith were still distracted, she bent over until she could reach the back of her head and rubbed the toxin into her HNDCFFS, allowing it to lubricate her wrists. Before Smith and Tio even realized what she was doing, she had leapt to her feet, her hands slipping from the manacles and launched herself at the back door, using the explosive jumping power at her disposal to clear the distance and kick open the door. Catch you later, beach. Toph declared to Smith, and next time I'll waste you. She pointed at Tio before leaping clear of the van. Ah, Tio turned to Smith. She got away. I might even have to go on the month course now. Smith's shoulders slumped. Unless. He. Smith-san. Naruto's clones. We're close to the farm and we can get him to find her. Smith smirked. Quickly. To the farm, she banged on the partition between the driver and the rear of the vehicle. My free time depends on it. With Toph. The amazing Toph-sama does it again. Sticking it to the man against impossible odds. Toph smirked as she hopped into the forest. I can hang out around here for a while. No one will find me and there are bound to be plenty of grubs and berries and such around here that I can eat. Toph nodded as she sat down on a tree stump. Ugh, what is this? Sap. She looked at a strange sticky substance on her hand. There was the sound of rustling grass behind her and she felt hungry eyes staring at her. Who's there? You wanna go? I'll kick your butt. Toph declared to the bushes as she tried to spot the foe. What, you too chicken to face me? She snapped a branch off of a tree and brandished it like a sword. Come on. She taunted. The bushes rustled some more. Fine, I'll come to you then. Toph lunged with the branch, thrusting it into the bush and slashing blindly, causing whatever was causing the noise to retreat. Ha! Another victory for Toph-sama. She glanced at the badly splintered branch and tossed it to one side. I am unstoppable right now. But the fact is that those government goons probably won't leave me alone. I'll need followers. Heh. Toph smirked. I'll need a gang to oppose those bastards. Maybe I can find some liminals around here and beat them into SBMSN. She cracked her fists. Yeah. That sounds like a plan. She started to look around the forest until she saw some damaged trees and signs of a chase. Heh, whatever made these tracks must be hella strong. They'll definitely be useful when facing that giant again. Following the trail of Damage, she approached the edge of the forest where a glowing yellow liminal appeared to be talking to a strange one-armed liminal that had a glare so cold, Toph half expected the nearby lake to freeze over, as well as a long leg-type arachne. What are they doing? Toph wondered as the golden liminal bit his thumb and slammed it on the floor, causing a smokescreen to envelop the area. Well, whatever they are doing, they look like a promising first members for my gang. Using the smoke as cover, Toph advanced on the three strangers. Back to the present. And you all know what happened after that. Toph crossed her arms sulking. So you're an escaped criminal who has already attacked a previous host. Chi-Chi stood up suddenly. I cannot in good faith allow this criminal to endanger the well-being of Handler-san. It's not your call to make, Smith pointed out. That is. Chi-Chi glanced at Naruto. Surely you cannot be thinking of accepting this delinquent into our house. Aren't you being a little harsh there? Naruto frowned softly. I apologize. Chi-Chi lowered her head. I do not mean to be, but there is just something about her that gets under my skin. Don't worry, many people feel inferior in my presence. A stupid copper would never be able to put it into words, Toph declared as Chi-Chi barely held herself back. Do you want to be deported? Naruto asked Toph. Hell no, she shook her head. I decided I was going to do this exchange thing and my pride means I won't give up on it. But you realize that if you keep antagonizing Chi-Chi I can't really let you stay here. Naruto pointed out. Why should I care about that? Because this is your last chance, Smith cut in. Either you play nice or you go home. TCH, fine. Toph crossed her arms. I ain't playing nice with the copper, but if she leaves me alone I'll leave her alone. I will endeavor to avoid conflict. Chi-Chi frowned. A police officer should always seek to disarm conflict rather than escalate it. That's great. Smith nodded. So we're all agreed. Yeah, Toph replied flippantly. Welcome to the farm, I guess. Naruto smiled at Toph. Whatever boss, Toph merely crossed her arms and leaned back in her chair, putting her bare feet on the table, much to Kagaya's disgust. As per Article 21E, subsection 2 which states, a diplomatic representative is required to follow any orders and accept any decisions made by the handler unless this violates a primary law, I have no choice but welcome you to the household. Chi-Chi narrowed her eyes at Toph. I shall be sure to correctly instruct you on how to behave. Fight me. Toph stood up. Well, that seems to be sorted then. Ms. Smith interrupted the two liminals. Unless anyone else has anything to say. She glanced at Kagaya. Another charity case. Kagaya glared at Naruto. How are you supposed to fulfill your duties as my servant if you keep taking on these hopeless cases? Hopeless? Chi-Chi frowned. Don't put me in the same category as that copper. You are so dreadfully common and shameless. She pointed at Chi-Chi. The vulgar spider and her foul name. Chi-Chi scowled whilst Toph snickered. And you with your shameless attire and complete absence of manners. Kagaya pointed to Toph who stopped snickering and opened her mouth, probably to tell Kagaya to fight her. Fortunately the conversation was derailed by a certain sunglasses-wearing coordinator. Oh look, Ms. Smith interrupted the argument. It looks like food is ready. And not a moment too soon, Naruto sighed as the two liminals and Kagaya settled down as his clones walked in carrying various meals for the people at the table, all the while Chi-Chi and Toph were glaring at each other and shooting the odd glance at Kagaya, who merely ignored them for the most part. When will your friend join us? Oh, I forgot to call her in, Smith smiled. I told her to wait for my cue. Come on in, Tio. Her. Tio. Naruto and Kagaya shared a glance. So the ogre who carried me around like a sack of corn is here. I'll bet she is all muscles and has a face not even a mother could love. Probably has severe body odor issues as well. She's probably of the lowest possible BRTH, so much so that she makes that useless servant look like the epitome of grace. Kaguya smirked as she imagined a dumb-looking ogre missing most of its teeth and dragging a crude club across the floor. Sorry I'm late. The armor is difficult to remove without help. A feminine voice called out as Tio re-entered the kitchen. She paused awkwardly as Naruto and Kaguya stared at her. Is something the matter? Well, Naruto laughed weakly. How can I tell her I thought she was going to be some huge guy? Kind of like that guy Han we had to fight before Kaguya appeared. You mean Kokuo's Jinchuriki? Yeah, him. Naruto smiled softly. I can't forget any of their names. They entrusted me with them. Heh, Kurama seemed amused and touched. Then they were right to trust you. But still, maybe you should stop staring at the girl now. Ah. Naruto looked away from the self-conscious Tio. I thought you were a guy under all that armor. Sorry. I get that a lot, Tio pouted slightly. I guess I don't look very girly in it. But you look super girly in that. Naruto desperately tried to redeem himself. I mean that dress is so pretty and frilly. He faltered weakly, gesturing to the dress she was wearing. She was wearing a long yellow dress with pale yellow frills along the seams and hem, as well as a small red jacket. If there was a word that could be used to describe it, cute was probably the first thing that would come to mind. Super girly. Kaguya felt annoyed for some reason. Why is he drooling over that giant harlot? My kimono is far more dignified than that. I mean, look at it. You can see her ankles. She has no shame. You think so? Tio's face brightened. Thank you. Several clones walked into the dining area. You. Kaguya frowned at Tio. Do you not know how to handle nobility? Pardon, there was a flicker of confusion across the ogre's face. You threw me over your shoulder like I was an old sack. Well, she was half right, Naruto mumbled under his breath. If Kaguya heard his remark, she gave no sign of it. As royalty, I should be treated with much more respect than that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. Tio bowed her head respectfully. Well. Kaguya faltered as Tio's natural warm aura started to affect her. I guess. I can forgive you. Nobility is all about overlooking the failures of the lesser classes. Wow. I think that is the first time Kaguya has genuinely forgiven someone. Naruto chuckled. I think all she's ever done is berate me. Well, maybe if you weren't a completely useless servant I wouldn't have to. Kaguya responded bluntly. I see you two are still on good terms, Smith smiled mischievously. He knows his place. Kaguya picked up the chopsticks she had refused to take from Naruto to lift up a small carrot from her meal and place it next to one of her bunnies. What kind of boss lets himself get ordered around like that? Toph's tongue fired out to snatch her plate of food, which she began to eat with her bare hands. If you tried that with me I'd teach you some respect. Like you could teach me anything. Kaguya lifted a fork full of salad to her mouth, only to see it stolen by Toph's long tongue. Try me, bunny hag. Toph spat the salad out and stared at Kaguya with a victorious grin. How common, Kaguya's face screwed up with disgust. You've been awfully quiet, Chi-Chi. Naruto turned to the Arachne. I feel that you are making a mistake allowing that toad into this household. It appears her every action is calculated to irritate the other members of the household. And I bet all the criminals you're going to catch are going to be cooperative. Naruto pointed out. I see, Chi-Chi's eyes widened. In dealing with Nectafri-san I will be gaining experience in dealing with troubled youths. I apologize for my earlier statement. Chi-Chi bowed her head. Despite lacking any formal qualifications as a handler, you are proving a most resourceful teacher. Don't worry about it. Naruto waved off her bow and stood up to go to the kitchen. I'll see how dessert is coming along. He headed to the kitchen where all of his clones were sitting around playing cards. So are you going to pretend that this was all part of your plan? You know me. I dive in head first then plan as everything starts to fall apart. That's usually a bad idea, yet it always seems to work for you. Kurama admitted. How long until the desserts are ready? Naruto asked. How long is a piece of string? One of the clones called back. Say Naruto, I've been meaning to ask, why are you putting up with being given all these responsibilities, not to mention Kagaya's crappy attitude? Aren't we going to go back home? You and me both know I still intend to go home as soon as I find a way back home. As for Kagaya, I feel a little guilty. I'm responsible for her current state, and even if she was trying to bring about the end of the world as we know it, I don't think she's a bad person. Just misguided. Ever the foolish optimist. Despite his words, Kurama seemed amused. And what about your other house guests? What are you going to do with them? I guess I would make a pretty sucky Hokage if I didn't help them out a little. Naruto admitted. But what if they want to come back to our world? You have something of a gift for getting people to like you for some reason beyond my understanding. It's possible they may not want to leave you. They belong in this world. Naruto's face darkened slightly. Can you imagine what Orochimaru and his cronies would do if they got a hold of them? There'll be those who'll want to weaponize them or worse. True, Kurama conceded. Just try not to get too attached. We don't belong here. I know Kurama. Naruto sighed heavily. Dessert is ready now. One of the clones gestured to a set of trays which had various small cakes on it. This is the last of the supplies that Smith left us though. Yeah, Naruto frowned as he picked up the tray and took it to the table. I'll have to arrange a shopping trip or for Ms. Smith to get us some more supplies. She's probably eaten/drank most of them herself after all. You say that as if you dislike the company. Meal times are certainly more lively now. I imagine this is what it would be like if I had a family, you know. Lively's one word for it. Kurama chuckled as Naruto returned to a war zone that was once his dining room. While he didn't know what had happened in his absence, Smith was sitting at table staring into space, her glasses slightly askew as she sipped on her coffee. Toph was handcuffed to a chair that she was wielding as a club to try and repel a bunny who was sitting on the table, while Chi-Chi was struggling with a bunny rabbit that was trying to chew on her arm. Kagaya appeared largely unaffected, although was glaring at everyone while Tio hugged several bunnies to her chest and was gushing about how cute they were. I'm not even going to ask. I apologize for my behavior, Chi-Chi said as she finally managed to pry the rabbit from her arm. I should not have allowed Nectafree-san to get me riled up. I shall reflect on this failure. I regret nothing, Toph happily declared. I gotta show these fools who the boss is around here. Dessert is served. Naruto placed the tray on the table and Kagaya jerked her head slightly, causing all the rabbits, besides the ones unable to escape from Tio's hug, quickly left the table. I see you are adapting to your role of servant well. Kagaya smirked. You are currently ranked 124. 124. 129, no make that 132. You are counting your bunnies above me, aren't you? Naruto deadpanned. 139. Just eat your DMN cake. Naruto grumbled. Oh my, Tio smiled, finally releasing the rabbits who were reluctant to leave Tio's warm aura, much to Kagaya's displeasure. They're tiny cakes. They look so cute. I'm glad you like them, Naruto glanced at her. I think there's even a coffee cake here. Don't mind if I do, Smith swooped in and claimed the small cake. How amusing, Kagaya watched Tio delicately eat the much smaller cake. Despite your mammoth size, you are truly feminine, aren't you? A woman like you might have even found place in a noble court as a CRTSN of some lesser noble. I see. Tio slumped slightly. Don't listen to her, Naruto shot a warning look at Kagaya. What did I do? Kaguya returned the look with a glare, a strange mix of emotions swirling through her head. Confusion, anger and more than a hint of betrayal, which she quickly suppressed. She was well aware that despite his unofficial title of servant, Naruto was not a member of her retinue, not that she had one anymore. They were still enemies, she was just his prisoner, a trophy of his victory and a stark reminder for her that she failed to save her home. The meal was satisfactory. Kaguya stood up from the table suddenly. I shall retire. Don't you want to talk with Ms. Smith? Naruto asked. I have neither the need nor longing to converse with those below my station any more than I have already. There was an edge to her voice as she left the room. Okay. Naruto was slightly taken aback by her sudden departure. The rest of the group continued eating in an awkward silence, with the sole exception of Tio who happily ate her cake, seeming to enjoy every bite. So, Chi-Chi cleared her throat. I was wondering what agency you are part of. She looked at Tio. Me? That armor you were wearing doesn't look like it's from a civilian outfit. Chi-Chi continued. In my studies of police armaments I don't recall seeing any armor like that. Well, being a member of MON has its benefits, Smith nodded. MON. I'm surprised you haven't heard of it, Smith raised an eyebrow. MON or Monster Operations, Neutralization is a special task force for when liminals break the law. Normal police can't touch them due to the nature of the exchange treaty, so we needed a liminal task force capable of dealing with such threats. Couldn't you just have liminals in the police force? Chi-Chi asked. There's no reason why not, Smith conceded. Although as a special agency, MON has some freedom to act as it sees fit. She smiled. Which helps us avoid getting bogged down in red tape. As well as Tio here, there's Manako, Doppel and Zambina. They are a small but effective team. Smith nodded happily. Plus, they can fill in their own paperwork, so that saves me a ton of work. I see, Chi-Chi nodded. Thinking of applying? Tio asked. No. Chi-Chi shook her head. As a special forces agent, most of the work would be in secret, correct? I guess so, Smith nodded. MON doesn't really do much public work. I want to be a police officer so that everyone can see that Arachne aren't the scary monsters they appear to be, but people the same everyone else. I have to be seen publicly working to inspire other liminal species to work strong to disprove the stereotypes. Smith waved her empty cup at Naruto, who rolled his eyes and summoned a Kage Bunshin to get her another. That's a noble goal. It'll take a lot of strong work and training to accomplish. I know. Chi-Chi nodded. And I'm prepared to give it my all. Don't worry there, Toph smirked. I'll help you train. I'll get you some donuts and you can sit around on your fat but eating them. Perfect cop training. I would not expect one such as you to understand the nobility of a police officer. Chi-Chi retorted, her cheeks coloring slightly at the mention of her large posterior. Still, I have to admit that armor is pretty badass. Toph leaned forward. I'm guessing it's a custom fit? Yes, Tio frowned. It's so difficult to find clothes in my size. Just the other day I saw this really cute dress, but it was only in human sizes. I was so disappointed. I'm somewhat fortunate that my top half is fairly human-shaped. Chi-Chi nodded. I know that feeling, Naruto nodded. Back home it was so strong for me to find an awesome orange sweatsuit. The only ones I could ever find were only for little kids, not a growing young man like myself. Somehow I don't think that your issue is as severe as Tio's. Smith shook her head. I don't get what all the fuss is about looking cute. Toph leaned forward, resting her head in her hands and her elbows on the table. I'd much rather have something practical that doesn't hold me back in a fight. There's nothing wrong with wanting to look presentable rather than like some street gang member. Chi-Chi scolded Toph. Geez, Tio pouted. There's nothing wrong with looking good, you know. She crossed her arms, unintentionally lifting her already impressive bust. Trying to say you need big tips to look good, eh? Toph twitched. Brst size has nothing to do with anything. Chi-Chi frowned. Of course you'd say that. Toph stood on her chair. You're looking down on us less developed girls. We'll see how much your tips count for when I mash your face up so bad you look like a Picardo painting. Do you mean Picasso? Smith ventured. Whatever. Toph yelled. Like I have time to waste remembering crappy painters and their names. I've got fights to, fight. She finished weakly before hyping herself up again. Especially any of those bastards who judge people on whether they are cute or not. Please calm yourself, Tio smiled at Toph. Nectafree is cute as well. I meant no offense. Toph sighed as Tio's warming aura enveloped her and sapped away her anger and energy, leaving her feeling tired. Whatever. Heh, Naruto shook his head. You're pretty amazing. I don't suppose you'd consider moving in here. Her calming aura could potentially solve a lot of issues. Yeah, it even affects Kaguya. That's pretty impressive. Kurama agreed. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 3. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author DJ Unk 101 on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.